The U.S. has been on the brink of a crisis the entire month of October. And given your experience of governing during a crisis, how do we solve this?
Reasonable people can have differences about the role of government. Is it too big, too small? Should it be borrowing too much? Should it be solving social security and health this way or that way? But the way to solve these problems is not on a cliffhanger.
Do you think that the U.S. has lived beyond its means?
Well, I think the US has been fortunate in the sense that it's like a bank. It prints the money that other people accept. So you can live beyond your means over an extended period of time without being punished by the markets. But clearly, we have seen that enough people are now seriously concerned about that, and both domestically and internationally. So yes, the answer is yes.
Well, do you have any advice for lawmakers here in the U.S.? What do you think we should do? Should we raise the debt ceiling? Should we start prioritizing payments, austerity measures? I mean, what advice would you have?
I think taking a more responsible attitude, forget whether you have a safe seat and therefore you don't have to worry that even though a majority of the American people will be against continuing this crazy situation, take a more sort of national, global, if you like, sense of responsibility and see this problem too. It doesn't really help to be polarized.
What ways do you think the U.S. could prepare for a potential default?
Well, I think the best way to prepare for it is really to avoid it. I mean, I know it sounds like you're not really answering the question, but the consequences of a protracted default are unimaginable. We're talking about the cornerstone of the world economy, the dollar, the U.S. economy, an economy that really has for many, many years has been really the example in some sense of stability. And now to all of the sudden add to the ongoing problems the fact that the U.S. Unravels like this, I think the consequences would be unimaginable. So there's this strong urge as a citizen of the world, as a citizen of Europe, as somebody who is looking out for the interest of mankind. I think it's imperative that they really find a solution sooner than later.
But how do we avoid it? Do we continue to raise the debt ceiling and go into the Federal Reserve for monetary stimulus, or do we start making cuts to our budget and putting austerity measures on the people?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think raising the debt ceiling is a sine qua non, is something that really has to happen. It may be a temporary measure, and then it depends whether you waste the time that you're given by this or you use it productively. Austerity measures, I think, as I said earlier, one has to really decide what are the priorities, and you cannot pay for everything. That really is very true. You know that about yourself, myself, our families, the companies we work with, the countries we have served. You cannot do that over an extended period of time. There are many who get benefits who don't really need them, and there are those who need them who don't really get them. So some kind of redistribution also would be helpful to have also sustainable social fabric going forward.
Do you think the American people should start preparing for possible austerity measures?
I think some adjustments in the way of living, some overall correction, I think is inevitable, like it is in every country that, as I said, has had a period of living beyond its means for a while.
And we've heard news recently that the Troika is changed their GDP contraction numbers down from 9% to 7%, and then next year to 3.9%. What can we attribute this to in Cyprus?
Well, I think, obviously when this crisis happen, it's sort of like losing your innocence. It's the first time that it happens, and you try to estimate what kind of impact will that have on the confidence of consumers, on the confidence of investors. How will the banks be able to weather the storm? And you make judgments. I don't want to be pessimistic, but that could mean that the second year could be a bit tougher than we had also estimated. In other words, that the total correction would be about 15%. But I think we are encouraged by the fact that things did not turn out to be, in 2013, to be as bad as we had thought.
And we know that the standard of living in Cyprus is tough right now with the austerity measures that the people have been put through. How are the people responding to these measures?
I think Cypriots have shown a lot of maturity, realizing that the last generation had really had a very substantial increase in its standard of living. Some of it was in the form of bubbles, whether it was a real estate bubble. People saw the value of their wealth, their property, their houses going up substantially in ways that looked really unreal and unsustainable. So people were ready for a correction.
And what about capital? We also know there's about 93 cooperative banks, and that Cyprus is starting to ease their capital restrictions in the domestic banking sector. How is credit contraction impacting consumers?
Well, I think it's a serious problem. I would be less concerned about consumers because Cypriots had over the last few years overconsumed. So it will do them some good to borrow a little less and spend a little less. What I am more concerned is about small businesses, the businesses that need working capital to keep their people employed, to buy their raw materials, to keep producing. I think that would be the biggest challenge, and the challenge is that the banks to be able to allocate credit to where their best use would be to help those companies that are more likely to rebound, the companies that have a future. And I think this is the most serious challenge because our banks have really been put through a very, very difficult situation. The capital controls that you mentioned, are they easy to put on? They are extremely difficult
and how is that
to take
going?
away. Well, it's, in my view, not so well in the sense that confidence in the banking system, as really reasonable people would have expected, once it's shaken, it's very difficult to get it back. It is a bet we need to win this, to get the capital controls gradually removed. They have to be removed because if you keep them on, then your currency is a different one. You know, if you cannot, if you have money that you cannot use, it's as if you don't have it. And it's a very, very difficult situation to be in.
Well, how do you feel of your predecessor's handling of this? Would you do anything different?
I don't think there was much we could have done different. I think Europeans should have behaved differently. I think they should have given Cyprus the chance to adjust over a longer period of time. There was a new government comes in, like everything else, you expect them to begin taking tough measures, but you also give them time so that those measures can begin paying off over the medium term.
And another international phenomenon that hit Cyprus was Bitcoin. So many consumers started using this as a way to tap into credit. Do you think Bitcoin still has a relevancy in Cyprus?
We really had a lot of interest from outsiders to use Cyprus as a financial system. So to some extent it was good for us because we are a country of lawyers, accountants, and bankers. We don't really produce manufacturing goods, so it was the thing to be in. But now we have to be more careful. We really can't do things that carry out too much risk.
Do you have any Bitcoins?
No.
No?
No.
Well, another currency or form of currency that's been in talks is also the gold reserves in Cyprus. Is Cyprus going to sell their reserves?
I don't think so. No, we don't. We have some, but you know, even if you do it to retire debt. You don't sell the family jewels in order to spend it. If you have to do it, it's because you want to reduce your indebtedness. You to reduce the debt, the burden on the next generations. I don't think that is an issue now. The amounts are not that big anyhow. It has to be done in the context of the European Central Bank, so I don't think that's in the cards.
What type of efforts are you moving forward with in Cyprus to improve relationships with Russia, given that a lot of their investors were Russian?
We have a very good, very agile profession, a very lasting relation. There is a Russian community in most of our cities, many Russian kids going to school, new ballet schools coming out, being influenced with some of the cultural characteristics of the Russian people. So we feel very much like very, very close relatives. And despite this very tough times, this very, very good relationship is continuing. Now, it's true that not many new companies are coming through. They're trying to feel their way to see, will the banking system stabilize? Is this a place where we're going to get new business? But I think existing business, existing relations are continuing to be very strong.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.